to night 15 of 31 Wild Halloween Review Nights. Almost said 25, I caught myself there. Starting today and continuing on the next 3 days from now, I'm going to take you on a little trip down nostalgic road. That is if you grew up with this film series. If you didn't, if you're somebody like me, then it's not that nostalgic. And yes, I did just say me, I didn't grow up with this series. Today we're starting our discussion on the Halloweentown movies. Halloweentown was a popular Disney Channel original movie that aired in the late 90s, and it was so popular that it spawned 3 separate films. Now, of course, I've seen Disney Channel original movies before. I did watch the Disney Channel, they did catch my eye. I saw Luck of the Irish, I saw The 13th Year. Of course, I saw High School Musical and its sequel and the third one when it came out in theaters, and I saw Camp Rock. Whether or not I enjoyed them, that's a completely different discussion. I've seen a good number of DCOMs, as they used to call them, but I have never seen the Halloweentown movies. I know they're very popular, I know they are really nostalgic for those who grew up around the time that they came out. For some reason, I never had an interest in the films. I know they existed. Of course, I saw trailers for them. Obviously, they would play the films every Halloween. Of course, I know what Halloweentown looked like. I know they had that big pumpkin statue in the middle of their town. I know there was a magical grandmother. I know she had grandkids that were magic. The one thing that always stuck out to me about Halloweentown is the characters that have pumpkins on their heads. I don't know what you call those people, but that's something that's always stayed in my brain when I think of Halloweentown. I never got to sit down and watch these films. I was never really interested in seeing these films. I did, however, see 1 out of the 4 Halloweentown movies. And if I can give you another reason to question my logic on why I never saw these films, the Halloweentown film that I've seen, that I have a good memory of, is the 2nd movie. I didn't watch the first one, but I watched the 2nd one. I don't remember why I watched it. I think it was just because nothing else was on and I wanted to watch something. The only things I really remember from that film is the grandmother Aggie. She becomes black and white at one point, like she loses her color and she's just folding clothes with somebody. I also remember a part in the film where everybody at a Halloween party, they become their Halloween costume, like they transform into what they're wearing. And those are really the only things that I remember about the film. Now, of course, I have comments, especially about the costume scene that I just mentioned, but I can go into detail about that film tomorrow. Until then, why don't we sit down and discuss the first Halloweentown movie, which, yes, I have seen in full now. I have Disney+. With that all out of the way, let's now discuss and talk about Halloweentown. Released in 1998 on the Disney Channel, 13-year-old Marnie Piper and her 2 younger siblings, Dylan and Sophie, get a visit from their grandmother, Aggie, on Halloween night. Marnie learns that her grandma, her mom, and herself are all witches, and her grandmother's tale of a fictional world called Halloweentown is a real place. Grandma Aggie comes to her daughter, insisting she help as something is terribly wrong in Halloweentown. People seem to be looking strange and soon go missing. When Marnie's mom wants nothing to do with the problem, Marnie, followed by her siblings, travel to Halloweentown in hopes to start training on how to be a witch and to help her grandma uncover the sudden mysterious evil that lurks the town. So I've seen the film, I've seen Halloweentown now. Can I join all of you and say how it's the best thing to watch around Halloween? No, because I wouldn't go out and say it's the best film. I'll tell you this much, it captured my attention. I was definitely entertained. I love the costumes. I love the set design of Halloweentown. I love the look of it. I love the masks that people are wearing. I mean, obviously the masks that they're wearing as the characters, like the makeup. I'm pretty sure there's some puppetry in there. I don't know how they managed to do the skeleton driving the taxi. It looked a little like a mix of puppetry and CGI. I'm not sure there, but I thought that was pretty cool. Again, the Pumpkinhead characters that has always been embedded in my brain when I think of this series, I think the design of them are really cool. I just love the look of how Halloweentown is. Yeah, it's like an ordinary fall town, and I could really get behind that stuff. I enjoy watching that kind of stuff. You know, seeing a town be smothered with one specific holiday and everybody around is involved with that holiday in some way. That might explain one of the reasons why I'm obsessed with a certain Halloween film that we're going to talk about in a few days. Now, in regards to story, I did enjoy this to an extent. You know, it is a Disney Channel original movie, or a DCOM as I've been calling it, and if you know those early DCOMs, you'll know they got a little zing to them, they got a little cheesy smell to them. Watching it and seeing how hyper the kids were, you know, the character Dylan, how he's a smart aleck, he's bringing up all these points, he's obviously the smart one in the family. Marnie is the hyper one, the one who's like, I want to do this, I'm independent, why can't I do this? And Sophie's just the adorable little sister that follows around. You know, there's multiple Oh, what the hell was that? DCOMs have stereotypes and they're very easy to pick out when you watch them. They have a mom, they don't have a dad, because the dad's dead. What is it with Disney and the single parents? I mean, Smart House, which was another DCOM that I watched, I didn't list it before, but Smart House had a dad and no mom. Story-wise, you know, it was cute. It was a cute little story. But to bring up Dylan again, his snarky comments were pretty amusing to listen to. Like, he's talking with Marnie, he's trying to figure out, well, why are you so obsessed with Halloween? Why can't you enjoy a different holiday, like Arbor Day? We gotta save those trees! There's a bit when they get into the taxi, and they're going to their grandma's house. He's just staring at the skeleton, who's driving, and Marnie's like, it's not polite to stare. And he's like, yeah, well, it's also illegal to drive if you don't have eyes. And I thought that was a clever line. There was a character, or I should say characters. They were at the place where you get tickets or knowledge about the bus out of Halloweentown. The character was a two-headed human, like it was one shirt and the guy had two heads and they were arguing. I found that pretty amusing. Mostly because it was just kind of a chaotic scene that was going on. The mom shows up in Halloweentown to get her kids back. Now they're all going to go home together, and while she's trying to get the attention of these two guys who are arguing with each other, Marnie is making comments like, I hate you, I never want to see you again, because, you know, there's that whole child wants to be independent storyline in this film, and the parents like, no, you're not ready, I don't want you living this life. Now to talk about the villain of the film, Calabar, who is the mayor. And I want to say that I knew instantly that he was going to be the villain right after his first scene of being the friendly mayor. You know, this was the second time that I kind of sensed that. I did that when I watched Corpse Bride. You know, Lord Barkis in Corpse Bride, he seemed very normal, but then started to seem very suspicious as his scenes went on. The mayor in this film, while very friendly and charming as he was in his first scene, when it ended, I knew something wasn't right, and I had a sense that maybe this guy might be the villain, because I had that feeling just when watching him, like, you know, he's just too nice. I feel like I've seen this somewhere before. You know, and also how he brings up how he's a warlock when he's not so busy being a mayor, like, that's also good foreshadowing, because he ends up using his warlock powers towards the end of the film, and at the very end when he revolts back against the family. I could sit here and say that I was a bit clever to figure that out right after his scene ended, but I also saw the second movie, and while I don't remember him being the villain of the second movie, the second Halloweentown film is called Calabar's Revenge. And I did not know his name was Calabar until Grandma Aggie said Calabar. So, I can't be clever right now. I liked him as a mayor. I thought he was a good mayor. I was a bit upset to find out that he's, you know, this evil person at the end. And I mean, also, I'm a little confused on what his actual plan was. I mean, he gave a speech multiple times repeating these lines, you know, to the Halloween people, let's take back the mortal world, because there was a little story Grandma said that humans and the supernatural beings that we're exposed to, they used to live side by side, but then things got out of hand because humans were getting scared, they wanted them away, so they created their own world, and that's how Halloweentown was born. Hooray! Calabar wants to get all the Halloweentown characters back into the mortal world to take back what was rightfully theirs. I mean, that's understandable, but then you have this little plot where he's freezing people in a theater. Did I miss something, or are people kind of confused about that as well? Is that just a trap on how to stop people who figure out what he's doing? Did I miss that part? Am I going to have to go back and rewatch that? Whatever the case was, Halloweentown is a Disney Channel original film. I've seen it. Boy, did I laugh at that ending. You want a cheesy 90s film that you can laugh at? It would be the ending of this film. The family gets together, they're about to get on the bus, every resident of Halloweentown is surrounding them, and they have the most cheesiest conversations. They're ending it in such a typical 90s way. The mom goes, I have a lot of PTA meetings on Thursday, I'm gonna need somebody to watch the kids. Grandma's like, oh, I can only make a trip back and forth when it's Halloween. And then the mom's like, well, I guess you're going to have to stay with us. And they're all so excited. Marnie's like, oh boy, I get to start my training. And the mom's like, no, Grandma's not going to help you train. I'm going to help you train. And I'm like, of course you are. Now everybody gets on the bus. They're all waving to their brand new Halloweentown friends. And they fly off into the sky. Happy ending. I like it. It's cute. I'm not hating on it whatsoever. I just find it funny that something like that actually happened. It was a pretty good film. I did enjoy it. Do I understand the hype over it? Why so many people get ecstatic about it? The fact that it's become so many people's childhood, that it's so nostalgic for so many people? Yes and no. I'm technically an adult, so watching it now kind of means nothing. But if I watched this around the time I was supposed to, being when I was a child, I probably would have a different opinion. But I understand why people enjoy it. There is Halloween all over the place. It's a very exciting and fun Halloween film that you can sit down and enjoy for about an hour and a half. And I get it. There are some charming elements to it that people could become obsessed with. So I understand why so many people enjoy it. And I now can happily say that I watched Halloweentown. I can't say I grew up with it, but I could say I've seen it. But that is just one out of 4 movies. I believe they call that a quadrilogy. Quadrilogy? Why doesn't that sound right? That is just one out of the 4 Halloweentown films in this series. I've seen the first one. Now it's time to move on to the second one. So come back tomorrow as I relive my experience watching the second one for a second time, or maybe a third time. I may have seen the second one twice. I don't really remember. Again, I only have a memory of those 2 specific scenes. But come back tomorrow and I'll explain a bit more about what's involved with Halloweentown 2. Thanks for watching The Wild Review on The Wild Review, and you just saw me review a thing.